Angry? No. Disappointed? A little bit. Confused? Definitely. Evolution Legacy Animated Universe Prowl, today on Guerrilla Reviews. Yes, we finally have an animated representation. Remember that the bulkhead was actually a prime version of it. And for reasons that will never be properly explained, at least in this decade, they went with a more Generation 1 themed bot and relatively alt mode, even though it is reminiscent of the animated version, as seen here. And lengthwise, it checks out pretty much. Bulk-wise, it's relatively the same, though yes, the original one is a bit taller. We'll get into that way more in the robot mode. Now, as you saw with the original animated version, they worked very differently. It actually covered up the hip part right here with the bike fin, or rather intake valves. I would imagine that's what they're called. So, making a far more cohesive motorcycle. This is serviceable, but it has some issues. Obviously, a little gappiness here, and oh yeah, the hip sticking out is definitely a sticking point. But unfortunately, much like the original one, the hands don't like to stay together, so they at least took the same design cue and you had the same problem. So I can't be too upset about that one. As for millimeter ports here, you have one on the gas tank here, one what will be the shoulder, and one on the forearm. And as for accessories, we get a little bit more into this in the robot mode, but it did include the glaives, kunai, sort of here that's from the wheel hubs. It didn't include the traffic light, which honestly people can give or take anyway. You're not going to see it in this review because I couldn't find it, which is another reason why I'm not too concerned about that. Alright, moving on to transformation, where things are going to look even more similar, in certain respects anyway. We'll start by folding in the kickstand and unpegging the foot here from the intake wings, folding upward, and folding out for leg 1. Silly, but you can do it if that excites you. Okay, repeat the same process with the other leg. Fold these out, fold these up, because those will go in a different spot later. Separate and fold out the arms. Bring this up and around. Okay, actually keep those folded in while you bring all this around, and then it all just comes together that way. A lot more intuitive after the second time. Doing it in a robot, into vehicle mode, it becomes a little bit of a hassle, at least the first time. But here we go. Fold down the arms, make sure everything's cohesive. Fold down that flap. Animated Prowl Evolution version. And if we take a look here, again in comparison with the original animated version, it's obvious that the cues were taken from the original, but with the G1 style version, it's different, for better or worse. Some people might have a problem with this. I'm more concerned about the height discrepancy, because while they were fairly similar in the bike mode, yeah, you got a tall boy for the animated version, and not so much for this one. But that's probably due to over a decade of changes and engineering and other such slowness I'm sure you've all heard of. Getting back to the accessories here, we come to these wheel parts, fold these out, and indeed we do have his kunai shuriken things. These were actually used a lot more in the well, these were used in the show as opposed to the traffic light thing, so I can at least accept the fact that they included something that was used, and this was more integral to the to the robot mode anyway. So it's nice that they at least included accessories at all. If that excites you. Articulation, which works quite a bit differently. We do have a ball jointed head here, mushroom peg shoulders, along with a universal joint for the outward movement, mushroom peg swivel for the bicep, 45-degree elbow bend, and inward hand tilt, waist swivel, though that does get a little bit hindered because of the flap here, universal joint for the hips, very tight on mine, which is not a bad thing. Thigh swivel, 45 plus bend for the knee, unintentional secondary shin bend, I guess I'll call it, and ball jointed foot. So there is ankle tilt and such. So it might not be as lanky, but you can get him in some decent poses, which is always nice. Now, whether or not you want this particular version of animated Prowl is really up to you. There hasn't been a whole lot of animated representation, even in third party, so this is definitely a welcome addition, though some people will disagree with that. There are some questions I still have that I'll probably never get answers to, but it's still a decent figure. And it's closer to what they were trying to achieve than with the RC. Again, if you're after it, it's going to be a little difficult to find, as is most things. It depends on where you are and your access to the internet. But it is worth your time. And you know I'm always down for Prowl. Anyway, I am the Deceptiwolf. This has been Legacy Evolution animated Prowl. Gonna remind you all, free your mind, free your toys.